Welcome back. I'm N.S. Lavanya, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KCS Kasinadar College of Arts and Science. In this video, I'm going to explain the summary of Two Gentlemen of Verona, written by A.J. Cronin. The narrator, while driving through the foothills of the Alps to Verona, he was stopped by two small boys selling wild strawberries. The boys were dressed shabbily in old clothes that were too large for them. The two were dark-skinned and thin, with tangled hair and dark eyes, which had a serious expression. Though their driver tried to dissuade them from buying the strawberries, the narrator and his companion bought the biggest basket the boys had for sale because they were attracted to them. The boys were brothers. Nicola, the elder, was 13, and Jacopo, the younger one, was nearly 12. The next morning, the narrator found the two brothers shining shoes outside their hotel. The boys told him that besides picking fruit and shining shoes, the two boys also worked as guides. As the boys showed the narrator and his companion around the town, he noticed the boys were childish and innocent, but even though Jacopo was lively and Niccolo had a charming smile, both the boys appeared to be very serious. During the week that the narrator and his companion spent in Verona, they often saw the boys, who were always ready to do courts for the two men. One night, they were surprised to see the boys in the windy and deserted square, resting on the stone pavement beneath the lights. It was nearly midnight, and though he looked tired, Niccolo sat upright while Jacopo slept with his head resting on his brother's shoulder. They were waiting for the last bus from Padua so that they could sell the newspapers. The narrator was surprised at how hard the boys worked, and when he questioned Niccolo about it the next morning, he looked ashamed and tongue-tied. The narrator presumed the boys worked so hard and spent frugally as they were saving up to emigrate to America. Niccolo expressed a desire to go to the States, but said they had plans in Italy at the moment. The narrator then offered help before he left for the United States on following Monday. Niccolo declined the offer, but Jacopo readily took him up on it and asked him if they could go to Poleta, 30 kilometers from Verona, in the narrator's car. The narrator readily agreed to drive the boys there himself. He assured Niccolo, who appeared to be angry with his brother, that it would not be any trouble to do so. The following afternoon, they drove to the tiny village set high upon the hillside. At Poleto, Jacopo directed him to a large red-roofed villa surrounded by a high stone wall. As soon as the car came to a halt, the two boys jumped out, and telling the narrator they would be back in an hour, they entered the villa. After a few minutes, the narrator followed the boys inside. When he rang the bell, a nurse opened the door. He asked her about the two boys. She led the narrator through the hospital and stopped near the door of a little cubicle. Through the glass partition, the narrator saw the boys sitting next to a girl of about 20, who sat propped up on pillows, listening to their chatter, her eyes soft and tender. He realized at once she was their sister from their resemblance to another. The nurse told him that the children who had lost their mother earlier lost their father in the war. He had been a well-known singer. Shortly afterwards, a bomb had destroyed their home. As a result, the three children were left homeless and destitute. The children who had always known a comfortable and cultured life suffered from lack of food and cold. For months they lived in a shelter they built with their own hands amidst the rubble. Then for 3 years the Germans ruled the city. The boys grew to hate the Germans. When the resistance movement began secretly, they were among the first to join. When the war was over and there was peace at last, they came back to their beloved sister Lucia, who had earlier been training as a singer, had developed tuberculosis of the spine. The boys did not give up. They brought her to the hospital. Lucia had been in the hospital for 12 months and was making good progress. One day, she would walk and sing again. The boys in the meantime struggled hard to pay for her treatment. The narrator went back outside and waited until the boys came out. Then he drove them back to the city. He did not let them realize that he knew their secret, though he was very impressed by their devotion. War had not broken their spirit. Their selfless action brought a new nobility to human life and gave promise of a greater hope for human society. That's the end of the summary. Thanks for watching. We meet again next time.